The little girl was so hungry that she kept staring at the plate on the next table. Her small fingers tightened around the edge of the chair while her father pretended not to notice. The restaurant was filled with warm lights, quiet laughter, and the soft clinking of expensive cutlery, but at their tiny table in the corner, there was only silence and a single glass of water. And that was the moment a powerful CEO noticed them. Before we begin this emotional story, take a second to like the video, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel if you believe that small acts of kindness can change someone's life forever. Stories like this remind us that even one simple moment can create a ripple that lasts for years. It was a rainy evening in downtown Chicago, and the city looked like a painting made of lights and reflections. Inside one of the most elegant restaurants in the area, people in suits and evening dresses were enjoying dinners that cost more than some families spent in a week. The air smelled of roasted steak, garlic butter, and freshly baked bread. In the far corner of the restaurant sat Daniel Harper, a 32-year-old single father whose worn jacket had clearly seen better days. His dark hair was slightly messy, and exhaustion rested quietly on his face like a permanent shadow. Across from him sat his 6-year-old daughter Lily, whose bright eyes and tangled ponytail made her look both innocent and tired at the same time. Daniel hadn't planned to come here. In fact, this restaurant was the last place someone like him would normally step into. But the rain had started pouring so suddenly that he had rushed inside just to keep Lily dry. The host had looked hesitant at first when they walked in. Daniel could see the quick glance at his shoes, the faded backpack on his shoulder, but the restaurant wasn't completely full, so they were given a small table near the corner. Daniel checked his wallet again under the table. Inside were a few folded bills, barely enough for something small. He had lost his job 3 weeks earlier when the warehouse he worked at shut down unexpectedly. Since then, every day had been a quiet battle between pride and survival. He had been skipping meals so Lily wouldn't have to. Tonight was one of those nights. Lily tried to be brave. She swung her legs slowly under the table and looked around at the beautiful chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Plates passed by their table carried food that looked like something out of a movie. Daniel finally ordered the cheapest item on the menu, a small bowl of soup, and asked for an extra spoon. When the waiter placed it on the table, Lily's eyes lit up with excitement. Daniel gently pushed the bowl toward the center so they could share it. He smiled, pretending everything was normal, but inside he felt the quiet ache of a father who wished he could give his daughter more. A few tables away sat Eleanor Grant. At 52, Eleanor was one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. She ran a global technology company that had offices in 20 different cities and thousands of employees. People often described her as sharp, disciplined, and intimidating. Business magazines regularly featured her on their covers. But that night, she wasn't thinking about work. She had just finished a long meeting with investors and had stayed behind to eat alone. Her attention drifted across the restaurant when something unusual caught her eye. It was the way Daniel carefully split the soup into 2 equal portions with the spoon. It was the way Lily smiled like it was the best meal in the world. And it was the quiet dignity in the father's face. Eleanor had seen wealth all her life. She had attended private schools, lived in luxury apartments, and spent decades surrounded by powerful executives. But something about that small table in the corner made the entire restaurant feel different. She kept watching. Daniel noticed Lily looking again toward another table where a family had just received a large pizza. The smell drifted through the air, and Lily swallowed quietly before forcing herself to look away. Daniel took a deep breath. After a moment of hesitation, he stood up. His heart pounded as he walked across the restaurant toward Eleanor's table. He had noticed earlier that she was sitting alone, and desperation had pushed him to make a decision he normally never would. When he reached her table, he spoke softly, trying to remain respectful. He explained that his daughter was hungry, that he was a single father who had fallen on hard times, and that he didn't want charity. All he asked was whether they could share the empty seats at her large table so Lily could feel like she was part of a real dinner. He offered to pay for their own food once he found work again. Eleanor stared at him for a moment. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. There was something deeply honest in the way he spoke. No begging, no dramatic story, no attempt to manipulate sympathy. Just a tired father trying to give his daughter one small moment of normal happiness. Eleanor slowly nodded. Daniel returned to Lily, who looked confused but excited when they moved to the larger table. For the next hour, something quietly magical happened. They shared food, laughter, and stories. Lily talked about her favorite cartoons and how she wanted to become a veterinarian someday. Daniel apologized repeatedly for the inconvenience, but Eleanor waved it off each time. She asked Daniel about his life. He told her about losing his job, about raising Lily alone after his wife had passed away 3 years earlier, and about how he was searching for work every day. What struck Eleanor the most wasn't his hardship. It was his determination. Even in the middle of struggle, he spoke about Lily's future with hope instead of bitterness. That night ended simply. Daniel thanked Eleanor sincerely, and Lily hugged her before leaving the restaurant. Eleanor watched them walk into the rainy night. But something about that moment stayed with her. She never forgot it. Months passed. Daniel eventually found work again, starting from the bottom at a small logistics company. It wasn't glamorous, but he worked harder than anyone else there. Slowly, his supervisors noticed his dedication. Promotions followed. Years rolled by, and the little girl who once shared soup grew older. Meanwhile, Eleanor's company continued to expand. But despite her massive success, she often thought about that rainy evening. In boardrooms filled with powerful executives, she would sometimes remember the quiet courage of a father who simply asked to share a table. Then one day, nearly 10 years later, something unexpected happened. A young man walked into Eleanor's corporate headquarters for a high-level operations interview. His resume was impressive. His work history showed remarkable progress, leadership, and problem-solving skills. His name was Daniel Harper. When Eleanor saw the name on the schedule, something stirred in her memory. And when Daniel walked into the room, she recognized him instantly. He looked different now, confident, well-dressed, and standing tall, but the same quiet determination was still there in his eyes. Daniel, however, did not recognize her at first. Not until she smiled and asked a simple question. She asked whether he still shared soup with his daughter when times were tough. Daniel froze. And suddenly the memory returned. The rain, the restaurant, the table. Emotion filled his eyes as he realized who she was. The interview that day was unlike any other. Eleanor didn't hire Daniel out of sympathy. She hired him because the qualities she had seen years ago, integrity, resilience, humility, were exactly the qualities she valued in leadership. Within a few years, Daniel became one of the company's most respected executives. And Lily. She eventually went to college and studied veterinary medicine, just like she had once dreamed. The night they shared the table had become a quiet turning point in all their lives. Because sometimes kindness isn't loud. Sometimes it's just a chair pulled up to a table. And sometimes that small moment can echo across an entire lifetime. Before we finish this story, I want to ask something special. In the comments below, write the word kindness if you believe even the smallest act of compassion can change someone's future. And if this story touched your heart in any way, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this.